The coffee mug shattered against marble as Marcus Chen stared at the woman across his mahogany desk, her dark eyes unwavering. "Your empire," Malia said, her Afro-Korean features set in determination, "is built on a foundation you're too afraid to examine." In that moment, something cracked inside him, not anger, but recognition. She saw through the billions, the power, the carefully constructed walls. And worse, she made him want to be seen. Welcome to Wonderpath Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The fluorescent lights of the Pacific Diner flickered at 2:47 a.m., casting harsh shadows across the cracked vinyl booths. Marcus Chen had never been inside a place like this. His Tom Ford suit, worth more than most people earned in 6 months, looked absurd against the backdrop of laminated menus and coffee-stained countertops. The private jet's mechanical failure had stranded him in Portland, and his driver had deposited him at the only place open within a 5-mile radius of the airport hotel. He slid into a corner booth, his phone already buzzing with messages from his assistant, his CFO, his lawyers. $8 billion generated a lot of noise, even at 3 in the morning. Marcus ignored them all, suddenly aware of how bone-deep tired he was. Not just from the flight from Singapore. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. "Coffee?" The voice cut through his thoughts, warm and slightly amused. Marcus looked up and found himself meeting the gaze of a woman who seemed to exist in defiance of the fluorescent lighting. Her skin was a rich brown that caught the harsh light and somehow made it beautiful. Her hair, natural and full, was pulled back in a practical bun, with a few coils escaping to frame her face. Her features carried the striking blend of her Afro-Korean heritage, high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that held an intelligence that made Marcus sit up straighter. Her name tag read Malia. "Yes," he said, hearing the exhaustion in his own voice. "Black, strong." "Aren't we all?" she replied, and he caught the ghost of a smile before she walked away. Marcus watched her move behind the counter with the efficiency of someone who had worked this shift 1,000 times. She poured his coffee without looking, her attention on a textbook spread open near the register. Even from across the room, he could see the pages were filled with financial charts and equations. She brought his coffee and set it down with practiced care. "Anything else? What are you studying?" The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. Malia glanced back at the counter, then at him. "CPA exam, financial accounting and reporting, specifically." She paused. "You probably don't care. Most people ask just to be polite." "I'm not most people." "No," she said, studying him with those sharp eyes. "I can see that. The suit's a dead giveaway. Hermes tie, Patek Philippe watch, handmade Italian shoes that cost more than my car. You're either obscenely wealthy or obscenely in debt pretending to be obscenely wealthy." Marcus felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest, genuine amusement. "The former." "Congratulations," Malia said, her tone neutral. "Your coffee's $4. He pulled out his wallet and handed her a $100 bill, watching for her reaction. She took it without blinking, walked to the register, and returned with his change, counting it out precisely. $96 in various bills laid neatly on the table. "You're not impressed," he observed. "By money? Should I be?" Malia wiped down the adjacent table, her movements economical. "Money's just a tool, like a hammer. I don't get impressed by hammers either." Marcus found himself leaning forward, elbows on the table. The exhaustion was still there, but now it was mixed with curiosity. "Most people treat money like it's magic." "Most people haven't studied it like I have," she replied. "Magic disappears when you understand the mechanics." The diner was empty except for them, and a cook Marcus could hear humming in the kitchen. Outside, Portland's rain created a steady rhythm against the windows. It felt like they were the only two people awake in the world. "So," Marcus said, and he could hear the arrogance creeping into his voice even as he spoke. the defense mechanism of a man used to being the smartest person in any room. What financial advice would you give someone like me? He meant it as a joke, a way to amuse himself with whatever generic wisdom she'd offer. Save more, spend less, invest in index funds, the kind of advice financial bloggers dispensed like candy. Malia stopped wiping the table. She turned to face him fully, and the intensity in her eyes made him forget about the coffee, the phone still buzzing in his pocket, the exhaustion. She looked at him like she could see through the suit, through the carefully cultivated image of Marcus Chen, tech billionaire, down to something he'd forgotten existed. "Stop measuring wealth by what you own," she said, "and start measuring it by what you'd be okay losing." The words hit him like a physical blow. Marcus felt his breath catch, felt something shift in his chest that had nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with recognition. She'd found the fault line he'd spent 15 years trying to hide. "That's—" he started, but she wasn't finished. "You came in here wearing your net worth like armor," Malia continued, setting down her cleaning cloth. "But I bet if someone took it all away tomorrow, you wouldn't know who you are. That's not wealth. That's dependence dressed up in expensive clothes." "You don't know anything about me," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Don't I?" Malia pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. It was 3 a.m., the diner was empty, and apparently she decided he needed to hear this. "You're in here at 3 in the morning, alone, looking like you haven't slept in days. Your phone's been buzzing nonstop, and you haven't checked it once, which means you're either avoiding something or you're so used to being in demand that you don't even notice anymore. And when I didn't react to your money, you looked relieved. Like maybe, just maybe, someone might talk to you like a person instead of a walking bank account." Marcus stared at her. "Are you always this blunt with customers?" "Only the ones who look like they need it," she said. "Besides, you asked for financial advice. I'm giving it to you." "That wasn't financial advice. That was philosophy." "All good financial advice is philosophy," Malia countered. "Money's just numbers until you attach meaning to it. And you've attached all the wrong meanings." "Enlighten me," Marcus said, leaning back in the booth. "What are the right meanings?" Malia's expression shifted into something that looked like sadness mixed with understanding. "I watch people come in here every night. Rich people, poor people, everyone in between. You know who tips the best? Not the wealthy ones. The ones who've been broke. They remember what it's like. They measure their wealth by how much they can give, not how much they can keep." "That's naive," Marcus said. "Charitable, but naive." "Is it?" Malia stood up, walked to the counter, and came back with her textbook. She flipped it open to a page filled with her handwriting in the margins. "I make $32,000 a year working this job and 2 others. I have $17,000 in savings, $23,000 in a diversified investment portfolio, 0 debt, and I'm on track to buy a house in 3 years. How much do you have in liquid savings?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth was humiliating. "Most of my wealth is tied up in assets you can't easily liquidate without tanking their value," Malia finished. "Stock options, real estate, private equity. I'd bet you couldn't access more than a few million in actual cash without causing ripples in the market. Am I wrong?" She wasn't. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "My grandmother used to say the richest people she knew owned the least," Malia continued, settling back into her chair. "She came from Busan, with nothing but the clothes on her back and my grandfather's GI insurance payout, built a whole life on that, raised my mom, put her through school, died in a house she owned outright with friends who loved her. Never made more than $40,000 a year in her life, and she was happier than anyone I've ever met." "Happiness and wealth aren't the same thing," Marcus argued. "Exactly my point," Malia said. "You've confused them. You think the money will make you happy, or at least that's what you tell yourself. But really, you're terrified. Because if wealth equals happiness, and you have all this wealth and you're still miserable, then what does that say about you?" Marcus felt his hands clench into fists under the table. You're making a lot of assumptions about someone you just met. Am I wrong? The question hung in the air between them. Outside, the rain intensified. Marcus could hear his phone buzzing again. Tokyo was calling, probably. Or maybe London. The Empire never slept. No, he said finally, the word tasting like defeat. You're not wrong. Malia's expression softened. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm trying to make you think. You asked for financial advice. Here's the real advice. Figure out what you actually value, then allocate your resources accordingly. And I don't mean your money. I mean your time, your energy, your attention. Those are the real assets. Money just amplifies what's already there. And what do you value? Marcus asked. Freedom, she said immediately. Not the kind that comes from having money to burn. The kind that comes from needing less. I value my time. I value the work I do teaching financial literacy at the community center on weekends. I value my friends, my family, my ability to walk away from anything that doesn't serve me. Every dollar I save, every investment I make, it's all in service of that freedom. You teach financial literacy? Marcus felt his curiosity spike. Every Saturday morning, 10 to noon. Adults who never learned how money works, who are drowning in debt, or just trying to figure out how to start saving. I teach them what the schools never did. Malia glanced at the clock. I should get back to work. My boss might not appreciate me spending 20 minutes philosophizing with a customer. What if that customer wanted to tip generously for the conversation? Then I'd say thank you and put it in the college fund I'm building for my niece, Malia said, standing up. But the conversation was free. Consider it a public service. Marcus watched her walk back to the counter. Watched her return to her textbook with the same focused intensity she'd brought to their conversation. He picked up his coffee and found it had gone cold. He should leave. He had meetings in 6 hours, calls to make, an empire to run. But instead, he found himself asking, "What's your schedule like?" Malia looked up from her book. "Why?" "Because I think I need more of that public service," Marcus said. "And because you're the first person in 5 years who's talked to me like I'm human instead of a quarterly earnings report." "I work here Tuesday through Saturday, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., Malia said carefully. "But I'm not interested in being some rich guy's charity case or diversity token or whatever this is." "What if I just came back to talk?" Marcus stood up, leaving the $96 on the table. No strings, no offers, no savior complex, just conversation. Malia studied him for a long moment. "You're serious." "I'm curious," Marcus corrected. "You've given me more to think about in 20 minutes than most people do in a year. I'd like to understand how you see the world." "My worldview isn't for sale?" "I'm not trying to buy it," Marcus said. "I'm trying to learn it." Something shifted in Malia's expression. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. "Okay, but I'm not going easy on you just because you have money." "I wouldn't want you to," Marcus said. He left the diner as the sky was beginning to lighten, rain-soaked and strangely energized despite the lack of sleep. His driver was waiting, and the hotel suite was warm and luxurious. But Marcus found himself thinking about cracked vinyl booths and a woman who measured wealth in freedom instead of zeros. 3 days later, he was back. Malia looked up from the coffee pot with an expression of mild surprise. "You actually came back." "I said I would," Marcus said, sliding into the same booth. "Does that surprise you?" "Rich people say a lot of things," Malia replied, pouring him coffee without asking. "Following through is less common." "I'm not most rich people." "We'll see," she said, but there was amusement in her voice. Over the next 2 weeks, it became a pattern. Marcus would finish his days, video calls with investors, board meetings, product launches, and then his driver would take him to the Pacific Diner. He'd sit in the same booth, drink terrible coffee, and talk to Malia during the quiet hours when the world slept. She told him about her financial philosophy, about the difference between wealth and cash flow, about the poverty trap, and how expensive it was to be poor. She showed him her investment portfolio, meticulously built from minimum wage jobs and careful allocation. She explained how she'd taught herself everything from books and online courses, how she'd made every dollar work harder than the last. And Marcus found himself talking about things he'd never told anyone, about the loneliness of success, about how every friendship felt transactional, about the terror of wondering if people would care about him if he lost everything tomorrow. They wouldn't, Malia said bluntly one night, 3 weeks into their strange friendship. Most of them, anyway. That's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on the relationships you've built. Thanks for the comfort, Marcus said dryly. You don't need comfort. You need honesty. Malia refilled his coffee. Every relationship in your life is based on what you can provide. Money, connections, opportunities. You've trained people to value you for your resources instead of yourself. That's on you. How do I change that? Start by figuring out who you are without the money, Malia said. What do you actually like? What are you passionate about? What would you do if you couldn't use money to solve problems? Marcus thought about it. The answer was humbling. I don't know. Then that's where you start, Malia said gently. The next night, Marcus came to the diner with a proposal. Teach me to live on your budget, 1 week. I want to understand what it's actually like. Malia laughed. You're serious? Completely. You'll fail, she said. Not because you're weak, but because you don't have the infrastructure. You don't know how to cook, how to use public transit, how to fix things instead of replacing them. Those skills take time to develop. So teach me, Marcus said. Malia considered him for a long moment. Okay. But we do this right. You get $500 for the week. No credit cards, no backup funds, no safety net. You have to eat, get around, and handle any emergencies that come up with just that money. Deal, Marcus said immediately. You're going to hate this, Malia warned. But she was smiling. She was right. He hated it. On day 1, Marcus tried to take a taxi to his first appointment, coffee with Malia before her shift started, and realized a single ride would eat up $40 of his budget. He ended up on the bus, surrounded by people heading to early shifts, feeling absurdly out of place in his designer clothes. Malia met him at a coffee shop that wasn't Starbucks, where coffee cost $2 instead of $7. She watched him calculate how many cups he could afford for the week and saw the exact moment reality hit him. This is what most people live with every day, she said quietly. Every purchase is a calculation. Every unexpected expense is a crisis. Day 2, Marcus tried to cook. He'd never used his apartment's kitchen for anything except reheating takeout. Following a recipe Malia had given him, he managed to create something technically edible, but deeply unappetizing. He ate it anyway, understanding for the first time why she'd called convenience expensive. Day 3, the sole on his Italian leather shoe came loose. Normally, he'd just buy new shoes. But new shoes weren't in the budget, and replacing these particular shoes would cost $3,000. He ended up at a shoe repair shop, watching an elderly Vietnamese man fix them for $15, while explaining the craftsmanship that had gone into making them in the first place. These could last you 20 more years if you take care of them, the cobbler said. But people like you just throw away and buy new. Marcus felt the shame of that observation settle into his bones. Day 4, he met Malia's friends. Not because she'd planned it, but because they showed up at the diner during her shift. They were her people, a social worker named James, a teacher named Keisha, an EMT named David. They talked about their lives with an openness that startled him, about struggles with rent and student loans and aging parents, but also about community and purpose and showing up for each other. When they found out about Marcus's experiment, they laughed. "Welcome to the real world, rich boy," James said, but not unkindly. "How's it feel?" "Exhausting," Marcus admitted. "I've spent more mental energy in 4 days than I usually do in a month." "That's poverty," Keisha said. "It's not just about money, it's about bandwidth. Every decision takes energy. And when you're always calculating, always choosing between bad options and worse ones, you don't have energy left for anything else. But you all seem, Marcus struggled for the word, happy. We are, David said, because we've built lives that aren't just about accumulation. We measure success differently than you do. Community, impact, growth. Those matter more than the number in our bank accounts. Malia's been telling me that, Marcus said. Malia's smart, James said, grinning at her. She's going to run the world someday, but she'll do it on her terms, not anyone else's. Marcus watched Malia roll her eyes, but he could see the affection in her expression, the real friendship that existed between these people. They showed up for each other, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. There was no transaction, no expectation of return on investment, just genuine care. By day 7, Marcus had $13 left and a fundamentally changed perspective. When the week ended and he regained access to his accounts, the first thing he did was sit in his penthouse apartment and look around at the emptiness. 15,000 square feet. He lived there alone. The cleaning service came twice a week, and most rooms stayed untouched between visits. He owned art he'd never looked at, books he'd never read, a kitchen he'd never used. The view was spectacular and meaningless. He called Malia. I need to talk to you, not at the diner, somewhere else. They met at a park near her apartment the next afternoon. It was Marcus's first time seeing her in daylight, in civilian clothes, jeans and a sweater that looked soft and well-worn. She looked younger somehow, or maybe just more herself. So you survived, she said, settling onto a bench. Barely, Marcus admitted, sitting beside her. And I cheated. How? I had my assistant handle all my actual work. I didn't factor in that most people working minimum wage jobs also have to do their jobs during the week. I just focused on living on the budget. That's not real. No, Malia agreed. But it's a start. What did you learn? Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching families in the park, people walking dogs, kids playing soccer. Normal life, the kind he'd lost touch with years ago. I learned that I don't know how to do anything practical, he said finally. I've outsourced so much of my life that I've lost basic competence. I learned that money isn't just about buying things, it's about buying back time and mental energy. And I learned that what you have, the life you've built, is more valuable than anything I own. Malia turned to look at him. That's not true. You've built something too. Your company employs thousands of people. You've created technology that's changed industries. That matters. Does it? Marcus asked. I look at your Saturday classes, at the way your friends show up for each other, at the impact you have on individual lives, and I wonder what I'm actually building. Shareholder value? Market dominalization? What does any of that mean? It means you've succeeded by the metrics you chose, Malia said. The question is whether those are the right metrics. They're not, Marcus said. I know that now. But I don't know what the right ones are. I don't know how to measure a life well lived. Malia smiled, and it transformed her face. That's the best question you've asked yet. They sat in the park for 2 hours, talking about values and meaning and purpose. Malia told him about her volunteer work, about watching people discover they could change their financial situations, about the woman who'd cried when she made her first budget and realized she could actually save money. That's wealth, Malia said. Not the money she saved, but the knowledge that she could. The agency. The power to make choices instead of just reacting to circumstances. I want that, Marcus said quietly. Not the money. I have money. I want the purpose, the impact, the feeling that what I do matters to someone beyond shareholders and board members. Then do something about it, Malia challenged. You have resources most people can't imagine. Use them for something that matters. Like what? I don't know, Malia said. That's for you to figure out. But maybe start by asking what broke your heart. What problem in the world makes you angry or sad? Start there. Marcus thought about it. About the cobbler who'd fixed his shoes. about riding the bus with people working multiple jobs, about Keisha talking about her students who came to school hungry, about the exhaustion in Malia's eyes after a double shift. Financial inequality, he said, the way the system is rigged so that being poor costs more than being rich. The way someone like you has to work 3 jobs to build what took me a single lucky break to create. Okay, Malia said. So what are you going to do about it? That question haunted Marcus for days. He went back to his regular life, the meetings and calls, and endless demands on his time. But something had shifted. He couldn't stop seeing the gaps, the inefficiencies, the ways the system failed people who were working just as hard as he'd ever worked, but without the safety net of generational wealth and elite education. 2 weeks later, he came back to the diner with a proposal. "I want to hire you," he said without preamble. Malia didn't even look up from her textbook. "No? You haven't heard what I'm offering." "Don't need to," she said, turning a page. "I'm not interested in being your token diversity hire or your social conscience or whatever this is." "Chief Financial Officer," Marcus said. $250,000 a year, full benefits, equity package that could be worth millions if the company continues growing. You'd have real power to shape how we allocate resources, how we think about corporate responsibility, how we measure success. Now Malia looked up. "You're serious?" "Completely. You're smarter about money than anyone I've ever met. You understand systems, you think about impact, and you don't care about impressing me, which means you'll tell me the truth." "I'm not qualified," Malia said. "I'm not even a CPA yet. I have no corporate experience. I've never worked anywhere bigger than this diner." "So? I wasn't qualified to run a tech company when I started. I was 23 with a half-finished degree and an idea. You're more prepared than I was." Marcus leaned forward. "Besides, qualifications are overrated. You know what matters? Vision, values, the ability to see what's broken and imagine how to fix it. You have that." Malia closed her textbook slowly. "Why are you really offering this?" "Because in the last month, you've changed how I see everything," Marcus said honestly. "And because I think together, we could actually build something that matters. Not just another tech company, but something that addresses real problems. Financial literacy programs, living wages, equitable benefits. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I know I can't figure it out alone." "You're romanticizing me," Malia said. "You don't actually know me. You know who you want me to be, the wise person who gives you meaning and purpose. But I'm just a woman working 3 jobs and trying to pass her CPA exam. I'm not your salvation." The words stung because they were true. Marcus sat back, feeling the familiar defensiveness rising. But then he thought about what she'd taught him, about honesty and self-examination. "You're right," he said. "I am romanticizing this. But the offer stands. Not because I think you'll save me, but because I think you're brilliant and capable, and you deserve opportunities beyond working yourself to exhaustion for minimum wage." "And what do you get out of it?" Malia asked. "Maybe a chance to build something I'm actually proud of," Marcus said. "Maybe a partner who'll challenge me and keep me honest. Maybe just the satisfaction of using my resources to lift someone up instead of just accumulating more." Malia was quiet for a long time. The diner's cook called out that an order was ready. She got up, delivered food to the only other customer, refilled coffee, came back. Marcus waited, understanding that this mattered, that pushing would only make her pull away. Finally, she sat down across from him again. "I'm going to say no," she said. Marcus felt disappointment wash through him. "Can I ask why?" "Because you're offering me your world, but I've built my own," Malia said. "I have a plan. I'm on track to buy a house in 3 years. I'm almost done with my CPA. I have my volunteer work, my community, my friends. Your offer would give me money, sure, but it would cost me time, autonomy, and probably my soul. I've seen what corporate life does to people." "It doesn't have to be that way," Marcus argued. "Maybe not. But that's the world you're asking me to enter. And honestly, I don't want it. I don't want the penthouse or the private jet or the illusion that more zeros in my bank account will make me happier. Malia's expression softened. But I'll make you a counteroffer. I'm listening. Come volunteer with me, she said. Saturdays, 10 to noon, teaching financial literacy. See what it's like to actually help people without expecting anything in return. And maybe, if you stick with it, if you actually show up and do the work, we can talk about other ways to collaborate. Equal partners, not employer and employee. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't what he'd expected, but it was exactly what he needed. Deal, he said. That Saturday, Marcus Chen showed up at the Park Rose Community Center in jeans and a t-shirt, feeling more nervous than he'd felt pitching to venture capitalists. Malia introduced him to the class, 15 adults ranging from early 20s to late 60s, all there because they wanted to understand money better. This is Marcus, Malia said. He's going to be assisting me today, and fair warning, he's learning too. We all are. The class was humbling. Marcus watched Malia break down complex financial concepts into understandable pieces. She talked about compound interest using real examples, showed people how to set up budgets that actually worked, explained the difference between good debt and bad debt. She was patient, encouraging, and brilliant. And when she asked Marcus to share his perspective, he found himself talking honestly about his own financial mistakes. The lifestyle inflation, the meaningless purchases, the way wealth had isolated him instead of freeing him. Having money doesn't mean you understand it, he told the class. I've spent the last month learning that from Malia. She knows more about building sustainable wealth on $30,000 a year than I know with billions. That's worth learning from. After class, a woman named Gloria approached him. She was in her 50s, working as a home health aide, supporting 2 grandchildren. Thank you for being honest, she said. Most rich people come in here like they're doing us a favor, but you admitted you don't have all the answers. That means something. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes unexpectedly. I really don't have the answers. None of us do, Gloria said, but we're here trying to figure it out together. That's what matters. Over the next 3 months, Marcus became a regular at the community center. He showed up every Saturday, learning as much as he taught. He funded scholarships for people to take financial certification courses. He connected graduates with job opportunities at companies he knew. But more than that, he listened. He learned about the poverty trap from people living it. He learned about systemic barriers from people overcoming them. He learned about resilience and community, and the quiet dignity of people fighting for better lives, despite impossible odds. And slowly, his relationship with Malia deepened into something neither of them had planned. It started with coffee after class, then walks in the park, then dinners where they'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. Marcus found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone, about his fear of failure, his complicated relationship with his parents, his loneliness despite being surrounded by people. Malia shared too, about growing up navigating 2 cultures, about her grandmother's wisdom and her mother's expectations, about the pressure of being the first in her family to attempt certain dreams, about the exhaustion of constantly proving herself. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just stubborn, she admitted one evening as they walked along the waterfront. Everyone says I should take opportunities when they come. Your job offer, I mean. But I can't shake the feeling that I'd be selling out, trading my values for a paycheck. I don't think it has to be that binary, Marcus said. But I also think you're right to trust your instincts. You've built something real, something that matters to you. Money can't replace that. This is growth, Malia teased. 3 months ago, you would have tried to convince me the money was worth it. 3 months ago, I didn't understand the difference between price and value, Marcus countered. You taught me that. They stopped walking, facing each other in the fading light. Something hung in the air between them, unspoken but undeniable. Marcus, Malia said quietly, what are we doing here? I don't know, he admitted, but I know I've never connected with anyone the way I connect with you. I know that you've changed my entire perspective on life. And I know that I want to keep showing up, keep learning, keep trying to be better. If that's friendship, I'll take it. If it could be something more, I'd like to explore that. But only if you want to. Malia reached for his hand. Her fingers were warm in his. I want to, but I'm scared. We come from such different worlds. So we build a new one, Marcus said. Together, equal partners, remember? Equal partners, Malia repeated, and then she smiled. Okay, but we do this my way, slowly, intentionally, with full honesty about our concerns and boundaries. I wouldn't want it any other way, Marcus said. Their relationship unfolded over the next 6 months, like a flower opening to sunlight. They navigated the complexities of their different backgrounds, their different resources, their different perspectives. Marcus introduced Malia to his world, dinners with entrepreneurs, tech conferences, the machinery of his empire. Malia introduced Marcus to hers, family barbecues with her extended Korean and Black relatives, community events, the beauty of a life built on connection rather than achievement. They challenged each other constantly. When Marcus suggested flying to New York for a weekend, Malia countered with a road trip to see her cousins in Seattle. When Malia worried about relying too much on his resources, Marcus helped her see that partnership meant sharing burdens and opportunities. When Marcus fell into old patterns of using money to solve problems, Malia reminded him that some things couldn't be bought. Through it all, they kept showing up at the community center every Saturday. And slowly, an idea began to take shape. What if we scaled this? Marcus said one evening after class. Not the teaching itself. That needs to stay community-based, personal. But the resources, the curriculum. What if we created a foundation that funded financial literacy programs across the country? Malia looked at him carefully. Who would run it? We would, Marcus said. Equal partners. You handle the curriculum development and program design. I handle the funding and logistics. We both make decisions together. That's a huge commitment, Malia said. I know, but I think it could actually change things. Financial education, scaled to reach millions of people, not charity, education. Teaching people the tools you taught me. Malia was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'd want final say on curriculum. No watering down the hard truths about systemic inequality. No corporate-friendly messaging that blames individuals for structural problems. Agreed, Marcus said immediately. And we fund it properly. Living wages for instructors. Free access for participants. No monetization schemes. Done. And, Malia paused, I want my name on it. Not just your name because you're funding it. Equal billing. Marcus felt something warm bloom in his chest. The Chen Hale Foundation for Financial Empowerment. The Hale Chen Foundation, Malia countered with a grin. Deal, Marcus said, and kissed her. Building the foundation took another year. They worked side by side, arguing over details, celebrating small victories, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Malia proved to be a brilliant curriculum designer, taking complex financial concepts and making them accessible without being condescending. Marcus proved to be better at infrastructure than he'd thought, building systems that could scale while maintaining quality. They hired carefully, prioritizing people from the communities they wanted to serve. They tested programs in 10 cities, refined based on feedback, expanded to 20 more. They measured success not in dollars raised, but in lives changed. People who paid off debt, started businesses, bought homes, built stability. And through it all, their relationship deepened. They moved in together, into a modest house that Malia chose because it reminded her of her grandmother's place. Marcus donated his penthouse and most of his expensive possessions, discovering he didn't miss them. On a Saturday morning, 2 years after they'd met, Marcus woke up to find Malia already awake, sitting up in bed with her laptop. What are you working on? He asked sleepily. Looking at our impact reports, she said. We've reached 300,000 people now. 300,000 people who have better tools to build financial security. That's because of you, Marcus said, sitting up beside her. It's because of us, Malia corrected. You brought the resources. I brought the knowledge. Together, we created something neither of us could have built alone. Marcus looked at her. This woman who'd challenged him, changed him, taught him to measure wealth in ways that actually mattered. Malia Hale, will you marry me? She turned to him, eyes wide. You're serious? Completely. I know we haven't talked about it much. I know we're not traditional in any sense, but I want to build a life with you. Not because of what you've taught me or what we've created together. Because I love you. Because you make me want to be better. Because I can't imagine facing the world without you beside me. Malia set down her laptop. I love you too, but marriage is a huge step. So was starting the foundation. So was you taking a chance on some arrogant billionaire who walked into your diner thinking he knew everything? You were pretty arrogant, Malia agreed, but she was smiling. I still am sometimes, Marcus admitted. But you call me on it. You keep me honest. You remind me what matters. I need that. I need you. Yes, Malia said. Yes, I'll marry you. But we're having a prenup that protects both of us and ensures the foundation stays true to its mission, no matter what happens. Marcus laughed. I wouldn't expect anything less. You want to draft it, or should I? We'll do it together, Malia said. Equal partners, remember? Always, Marcus promised. They got married 6 months later in the Park Rose Community Center, surrounded by the people who mattered. Malia's family, their friends from the foundation, graduates from their financial literacy programs, Gloria and James, and Keisha, and David, and dozens of others whose lives had intersected with theirs. Marcus's best man was the cobbler who'd fixed his shoes 3 years earlier. Malia's maid of honor was her niece, now 15, and planning to major in economics thanks to her aunt's influence. Instead of expensive gifts, they asked people to donate to financial education scholarships. Instead of a honeymoon in Europe, they spent 2 weeks visiting foundation programs across the country, meeting instructors and students, seeing their work come alive in dozens of communities. On their last stop, in a community center in Detroit, a young woman approached Malia after class. Thank you, she said simply. 6 months ago, I was drowning in debt, working 3 jobs, couldn't see a way out. Your program gave me tools. I made a plan. I'm not out of debt yet, but I can see the path now. I have hope. Malia hugged her, tears in her eyes. That's all anyone needs. Hope and tools. You're doing the hard work. We just helped you see it was possible. Later, in their hotel room, Marcus watched his wife review her notes from the day's class. She was still in her teaching clothes, hair pulled back, completely focused. She looked up and caught him staring. What? She asked. Just thinking about how lucky I am, Marcus said. 3 years ago, I thought wealth was measured in billions. Now I know it's measured in moments like this, in impact, in purpose, in you. Malia crossed the room and settled into his arms. You know what the crazy thing is? I'm wealthier now than I ever imagined being. Not because of money, though that's nice. But because I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do. Because I have a partner who challenges and supports me. Because we're building something that matters. How much do you have in savings now? Marcus asked, remembering their first conversation. Malia laughed. Enough. More than enough. But you know what I realized? The number doesn't matter anymore. I have security. I have options. I have freedom. That's what wealth actually is. The ability to make choices aligned with your values instead of just surviving. And what do you choose? Marcus asked. This, Malia said simply. You, our work, our impact, our life. Every single day, I choose this. Marcus kissed her, tasting salt from her tears in his own. Outside, Detroit hummed with life, people working, struggling, dreaming, building. And somewhere in the city, someone was learning about compound interest for the first time. Someone was creating their first budget. Someone was discovering they could change their financial story. Because a waitress had once told a billionaire To stop measuring wealth by what he owned and start measuring it by what he'd be okay losing. Because two people from completely different worlds had chosen to build a bridge between them. Because money, in the end, was just a tool, and the real question was what you built with it. Marcus and Malia fell asleep wrapped around each other, dreaming of the programs they'd launch next year, the lives they'd touch, the world they'd help create. A world where financial education was a right, not a privilege. Where wealth was measured in security and freedom and impact, not zeros in a bank account. Where everyone had the tools to build the life they wanted, regardless of where they started. In the morning, they'd wake up and get back to work. There would be challenges, setbacks, hard conversations, but they'd face them together, equal partners building something bigger than themselves. And that, they both knew, was the richest life either of them could imagine.